Morning to you. How are you?
Yeah, all good, yeah.
Did you enjoy last night?
Uh, I did, yeah. It was a decent game of football. PSG, obviously the better side. Maybe a little bit disappointed. Felt a bit sorry for Leipzig. Probably similar to a couple of the other games that I've watched, kind of the Atlanta game. I just felt that when the moment arrived, they didn't quite find their A game. Somewhat below their best when it really mattered. One or two of their players not quite at the top of their form, and the team suffered. So I think without a doubt the best team went through on the night.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? That like the way this tournament is set up, you kind of felt like you would have played yourself into your best form to get to semi-finals, but that obviously wasn't the case.
Yeah, that's what would have been a one-off game, Jim. I mean, the two-off leg, you can kind of, you play to maybe 70, 80% of your capacity in the first leg, or a goal down. It's not the end of the world. You can easily turn things around. But a one-off, a game such as these, you've got to be close to your best. You need most of the parts kind of functioning within the team, in and out possession of the football. And that wasn't quite the case with Leipzig. I'm a big fan of Leipzig, how he sets the team up. Nagelsmann. I had no problem with the kind of small tactical changes he made. Kind of went to a back four. Mukulele came into the team to deal with the threat of Mbappe, and I actually thought it worked quite well. He's a great athlete, Mukulele. I thought he'd done well against Mbappe to the extent Mbappe shifted over to the other wing in the first half. But they were a little bit unbalanced apart from that. Lima was playing as kind of a right-sided midfielder. He's predominantly, for me, a central midfield player. Poulsen kind of huffed and puffed, but shown again he's probably a little bit short at the highest level in terms of qualities for a number 9. And Nkunku, who's kind of a good player, very kind of dynamic player off the left, I thought he had a very poor evening. So, yeah, a couple of parts just didn't really function for them on the evening, and they just couldn't. It just wasn't enough against a really solid, and I mean that as a compliment, kind of solid PSG team with that, obviously that cutting edge of players across the front line. That was enough.
It was kind of a contrast to the quarter-final performances where, I don't know, I didn't speak to you immediately after the quarter-final. Paris Saint-Germain beat Atlanta in stoppage time. Maybe you felt like they were the better team and that was an inevitability. That was actually always coming. The goals just happened to come late in the game. But that was clearly something that has given Paris Saint-Germain some sense of psychic freedom to go on and perform to their best level, because they weren't amazing in the quarter-final, but now they're performing at a level that's like 10%, 15%. There has been a confidence dividend, I suppose, is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think confidence has built upon every victory. And that Atlanta win was important. You're absolutely right. I don't agree with you in terms of the goal was coming. I think Atlanta let them off the hook. I'm a big fan of Atlanta, probably similar to Leipzig. Didn't feel as if we saw the best of them, but I actually thought they didn't do enough. Obviously, they lost the game, but I was frustrated with the Atlanta game because I think they just needed to make a couple of tactical changes. They went a goal ahead, and Mbappe came on the pitch second half. They never changed anything, Atlanta. They play with 3 centre halves and 2 wing backs. And when Mbappe comes on the pitch and isolates himself in a 1v1 situation against one of your back 3, you have to react to that. You have to get people around him and play 2v1 against Mbappe. You can't keep sending your fullback Hattie Barrow high up the pitch. And I think it was Toloi at the time, leaving them 1v1 situations with Mbappe. So I thought Atlanta missed a trick, just not making a small tactical change in terms of just getting people around Toloi, doubling up on Mbappe, because he turned that game for PSG in the second half. They couldn't deal with him. But they couldn't deal with him because they were prepared to leave him in 1v1 situations with the Atlanta defender. So I thought Atlanta actually let PSG off the hook a little bit, but they took advantage, won the game. And you're right, your confidence is built within the team. And I'm impressed with what I'm seeing, because I look at that PSG central midfield, Ger, and it's kind of, I say functional. I mean, Idrissa Gueye, Herrera, and Marquinhos, who's played majority as a centre half for most of his time at PSG, played the previous game. Paredes came in last night. He's more of a technician. But those 3 players, they don't leave the centre of the pitch, Ger. I mean, they just don't leave that area. They stay behind the ball. They hold their positions. They keep a good defensive discipline. And really, they let the front 3 get on with it. They're just there really to service the front 3 and to allow the 2 fullbacks on occasion to get forward. And I don't even think the 2 fullbacks, Kerr for me has never impressed me as an attacking fullback. He doesn't look. He's not the most productive when he gets into the opposition half the pitch. I think he's a reasonably solid defender. So this isn't a PSG team that you look at and you think, wow, top class footballers all over the pitch. You look at the two centre halves. I think they're rock solid. The partnership with Kimpembe and Silva. How many times can we say that? Looking at top club teams, we can't say that about kind of Manchester City and a number of the other top teams in terms of a top class defensively rock solid combination. PSG have that, and that's served them well. And that's been the bedrock of their success for me. That the centre half combination of Silva probably hasn't got the legs as he had in his prime, but he's vastly experienced, very clever defender, and Kimpembe, who has that athleticism, very kind of aggressive defender alongside him. And that kind of solid spine to the team, that midfield three I've spoken about, that's kind of been the rock and all the talks about front three and Neymar, etc. But that's been the key for me. If they do want to win and actually beat Bayern Munich, that defensive spine of the team is going to be absolutely key.
Is it too easy to make a comparison between how Paris Saint-Germain set up, Kenny, and how Liverpool set up, just given the influence of the full-backs, given that the midfielder often don't tend to grab the headlines, and it's all about enabling a star-studded front three?
Yeah, I think there's a slight comparison, certainly in relation to the front three and say in terms of the quality that they have across the front line. Don't think the balance is perfect. I think the Liverpool front three, in terms of how they interact, the combination played a lot more fluid, possibly than PSG. I'm not exactly sure of Neymar centrally, Mbappe and Di Maria. I mean, they function. Don't get me wrong. Neymar and Mbappe in particular are always looking for each other. But for me, the front three Liverpool, Firmino dropping in and the movement of the other two in behind off him is probably better. I don't think there's much of a comparison with the fullbacks there, to be honest with you. I've mentioned about Kerr in the right back position. Not particularly a big fan of him going forward. I think Thomas Meunier is actually the better attacking fullback, who's been there for a lot the past couple of years. Bernat's a really solid, very tidy player. He's obviously a bit more productive going forward. Got himself a clever little goal last night. So small comparison zone in terms of the front three, but not so much the fullbacks. I think probably PSG more dependent on those front three, and obviously Mbappe in particular for me is the one. A lot of talk about Neymar. Wouldn't go overboard, to be honest with you, in terms of some of Neymar's performances. Like, his final product's been awful, really, in terms of his finishing. But taking responsibility, looking to get on the ball and maybe make things happen. Some good individual play, 1v1 situations that catches the eye, absolutely. But if I was the defender, Mbappe's the one who absolutely terrifies me. I was watching him last night. He must have made about half a dozen runs in the first half, lads, in behind. He never got the ball once. I just saw him in the corner of the TV screen because obviously the camera's following the ball. And sometimes you can't see those runs from forward players. They're out of camera shot. But I caught him a number of times just standing off the centre halves, just looking disinterested and just suddenly sprinting in behind. And the ball never arrived. The defenders never saw it, never anticipated. And anybody with the ability to pick a pass out over the top, Marquinhos really isn't that type of player. Andres Herrera isn't. Paredes is probably the only one. But they haven't got enough of those players who can actually pick those runs out. But he's the one who can kill you, because he's always looking to go in behind into the area of the pitch where he knows he can do the most damage. So Mbappe, for one, is the one. If you get him on the ball sufficiently enough and in the right areas, and he gets into the right areas, he doesn't indulge himself like Neymar, coming too deep areas of the pitch, getting it off centre halves, etc. He stays up high in the pitch, in the areas of the pitch where he knows he can hurt teams.
How do you approach, again, Kenny, if you're in a defensive unit that can identify one talisman, but then all of a sudden Kylian Mbappe is also fit now, and you've got two players of unbelievably high quality to deal with? Does it complicate things as a defensive unit, and how do you deal with the double challenge that you face?
You have to deal with it. Well, you have to. You're not being professional, really, if you don't deal with it. That's what I was saying. I was disappointed with Atlanta when PSG made that change and Mbappe come on pretty much left wing. They didn't react to it. There was no instruction from the manager, right, we need to make a subtle change now. Not a change of shape. We just need to modify our approach a little bit. We have to get our right wing back in a more defensive position. We have to kind of nullify the space in which Mbappe operates. We got to kind of suffocate as best that we can. There was no reaction from Atlanta in that first game. So I'm sure Bayern will be looking at this game. I mean, Bayern keep it very high line. We all know that. They press high up the pitch, and rightly so, that kind of high press, and they want to dominate possession and get their forward attacking players on the ball. but they'd be absolutely foolish if they weren't having conversations about Mbappe in particular and his ability on the counter attack, and that high line in particular. The weakness in the Bayern team is down the right hand side, is the presence of Boateng in that defence. He's not the most athletic, he's not the quickest on the turn. Kimmich will probably play as a right back. His responsibility maybe to deal with Mbappe to an extent. And Kimmich's a very talented player, lovely footballer, but again, he's not ridiculously quick off the mark. So that's the area of the pitch Bayern are going to have to give a lot of consideration to, even if it means tweaking that high line, even if it means, look, lads, we can't squeeze as high, and if we do squeeze, we've got to be prepared to drop quickly into the space. When Mbappe's going to have the ball, he's going to have it into his feet, where Kimmich can go and press, where we can show him on the inside, where the likes of a holding midfielder, Thiago, be coming across, Boateng. So you're getting that bit of a suffocating effect around them in that area of the pitch, where you can't be doing the squeeze into the halfway line like we've seen previously, even against Barcelona, and allowing the likes of Neymar to drop to deep turn and just play those little diagonal balls in behind Boateng. I mean, they're going to they're going to open them up like, so I can't believe they're going to be that foolish, Bayern. And it's interesting, teams nowadays, this kind of philosophy which they have, high press, squeeze the halfway line, etc., etc. That's all well and good, but you can't do it every time. At times, you've got to assess each individual's situation and react to it. And if you don't at this high level against this quality of opposition in terms of Mbappe in particular, how they can kill you on the counter-attack, you're really asking for trouble. So this is a very dangerous game for Bayern Munich. I love the setup of the team. They are the favourites for the competition, but only favourites for me if they play it smart against PSG. Yeah. If we have a gung-ho approach, we're the best. We're going to show you how good we are in this game. We're not going to worry about the opposition. Let them worry about us. That type of attitude just doesn't work at this level. You have to factor in the certain individual qualities of the opposition players who can actually take the game away from you.
You're obviously completely writing off Lyon tonight, Kenny. There's no need to even kind of clarify that. But just, it's very interesting what you're saying there about Bayern Munich. Are Bayern Munich not incredibly impressive, and have they not been incredibly impressive because of that high line? And is then abandoning that ultimately going to lead to their own downfall, even if it might be the safe play this Sunday night?
No, well, the thing is, you don't abandon it. You pick and choose your moments. Okay. It's not so much actually keeping a high line. It's when you drop off the high line. You squeeze and you squeeze and you squeeze the pitch and try and keep it as condensed as possible. That's all good. But when the picture changes in front of you, i.e., I'm talking about the Manchester City game here the other evening against Lyon, when they've squeezed to the halfway line, and you look up and you see the opposition player who's manufactured a position where he's got time on the ball, his head's up, there's no pressure on the ball, that's to trigger them to drop. So you squeeze and you keep that high line. But when the picture changes quickly, then you have to make it. You've got to drop into the space. That's where the danger is. Manchester City didn't do that the other evening. Laporte didn't. He had his hand in the air, allowing Mbappe to run into the space. It was the wrong decision to make. It was the wrong decision not to squeeze and keep to get a high line, but to actually keep the high line. That was the wrong decision. Not to squeeze and get the high line, but to actually keep the high line. They should be dropping. Every situation is different. You got pressure on the ball. The man hasn't got time to make that pass over the top. Absolutely. Squeeze, get that high line and keep that high line. But once the picture changes and the opposition player has time to make that penetrating pass in behind, if you've got runners who are really quick, and Kembe was the example the other evening, then you have to make allowances for that. You know, you have to modify your approach ever so slightly. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You know, there can be areas of grey, and that's where individuals have to take responsibility. So Bayern will have to factor that in. They'll have to factor in against Lyon, because like I said, in Mbappe in particular, that's why he's in the team ahead of Dembele, because he has the ability to make those runs in behind, and he's very quick. So it'd be interesting to see if Bayern Munich makes small little modifications for that, even in the game against Lyon.
So Lyon are kind of the perfect warm-up act for Sunday from Bayern's perspective. Like, you are saying Bayern are going to win tonight?
I do fancy him to win, but that's only the small caveat. That's the only small caveat I have. If they totally dismiss the opposition and say, you know, we're going to play our football when we have the ball, but we haven't got it. We're going to press hard. We're going to get to the halfway line. We're going to keep that high line. I don't care what's happening in front of us, which opposition player has the ball, if he's under pressure or not. We don't care. We're going to keep this high line. And you know what? You can have that arrogance a little bit, Jerry, if you've got defenders who are ridiculously quick on the recovery. And funny enough, down the left-hand side, they probably have that with Alphonso Davies. You're not going to get anybody quicker. And Alaba is ridiculously quick. So if actually an opposition player gets a yard or two on them in behind, there's a fair chance they're going to get back and recover. They're that quick. The principle is wrong in what they're doing, but they're probably banking themselves and their speed on the recovery to get them out of jail. That isn't the case. That isn't the case on the other side of the pitch with Boateng. He's a little bit more clunky on the turn. And if he doesn't get it right, there's no way he's planting his feet, recovering and making up ground on the likes of Camby. So that'd be the interesting one for me, if they make allowances for that. I think they have to do, because we've seen already, you shouldn't underestimate this Leon team. I like the way they set up. I like the defensive setup of the team. There's not too many of these teams around who are comfortable, kind of out possession, sitting deep, soaking up pressure, have the confidence to soak up pressure because they have trust in their defensive setup, in particular across the defensive line, and obviously the ability to counter-attack teams. They'll do that this evening against Bayern.
Okay, Kenny, good stuff. Enjoy the game. Thanks a million.